Often, when we think about Marvel movies, the first thing we think of is the spectacle, the larger-than-life set pieces. Sometimes we forget that at the heart of the very best Marvel films is a great message that we can learn from. Ironically, Marvel's Doctor Strange is both spectacle and storytelling taken to new heights for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Doctor Strange uses its CGI spectacle to create a world that feels so unique and original. In some ways, upon my first viewing of Doctor Strange, it gave me a similar feeling to watching The Matrix for the first time. Both films are mind-bending in their concepts, and neither feels like a cheap imitation of anything that came before. Visually, Doctor Strange is one of the most creative films I've ever seen, which is heavily aided by its truly spectacular CGI. However, today, like always, we're here to talk about the story, and oh what a story this movie has. I would go as far as to argue that this movie has one of the strongest stories in any of the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies to date, and in this video I will outline why. As always with this type of video, spoilers ahead for the first Doctor Strange, so you've been warned. I always say that the best films, the best stories in fact, have strong characters for us to follow, and to tell a great story, you want that character to grow and evolve. In storytelling, this is referred to as a character arc. There are a variety of types of character arc, but the one I think is most inspirational, and thus the most fitting for a hero's journey, is the growth arc. In other words, a story in which the character has to learn something, as a result betters themselves from the lessons that they learn. Stephen Strange starts out his journey as an arrogant man. His exceptional talent at being a surgeon builds his ego to a point in which he thinks he is untouchable. He rockets around in his Lamborghini, checking his phone to see which medical case he wants to take on next. And I should note, Stephen isn't about helping others. He's about helping his own reputation. He chooses who he wants to save.
What do you got for me?
I've got a 35-year-old Air Force colonel, crushed his lower spine in some kind of experimental armor, mid-thoracic burst fracture.
Yeah, well, I could help, but so could 50 other people. Find me something worth my time.
I have a 68-year-old female with an advanced brainstem glioma.
Yeah, you want me to screw up my perfect record? Definitely not.
But in a split second, all that is lost. His life, as he knows it, is taken away from him. Following the car accident, his hands are permanently damaged beyond repair. He can never be a surgeon again. His whole identity, the very thing his ego was built upon, is taken away from him in one moment. The lesson in and of itself we can take from this is that how unpredictable life can be sometimes. We may think we control our own destinies. We may think we've made it to our targets. But life can throw us off course dramatically in mere moments of time, and we, like Stephen, have an expectation of what our lives are, and when that expectation is challenged by the unpredictability of life, it has the capacity to shake us to our very core. This idea is furthered in the world of this story. Before meeting the Ancient One, Mordo tells Strange to...
So might I offer you some advice? Forget everything you think you know.
The story takes that idea of challenging what we expect from life to a new level by reshaping the perception of reality itself. Stephen Strange's arrogance isn't really curbed by his car accident. In fact, it's only exacerbated.
No one could have done better.
I could have done better.
This isn't the end. There are other things that can give your life meaning.
Like what? Like you?
It's only when the Ancient One showcases reality to him under a new light that Stephen is able to start to change. He starts to have a willingness to accept that he still has much to learn.
Teach me.
The second act of this film focuses heavily on the idea of learning and the trials and tribulations that come with that. Stephen finds it incredibly difficult to learn magic, and he thinks that that's to do with his hands, but the Ancient One proves him wrong here.
It's not about your hands.
How is this not about my hands?
Master Hamir?
Thus showcasing that success in the pursuit of learning doesn't come from the body, but comes from the mind in which we approach that learning. In this film, it's showcased with the broadening of the world of Marvel's multiverse. But this message can be applied to ourselves too. Sure, we can't reshape reality, but we can reshape the way we see our world and the way we see what we can achieve. Over the course of this film, Stephen Strange achieves the unachievable through the determination and the power of belief. So perhaps what we can take away from this is that if we broaden our own mindsets and dedicate ourselves to pursuing something, maybe we can achieve what we thought was impossible. Now sure, we won't be changing the flow of time or breaking the multiverse, but maybe we can do more than we thought we could if we broaden our minds to the idea of
Possibility.
One of the elements I love about this movie is how it raises the stakes to a whole new level, but at the same time still feels pretty self-contained. A common criticism of the solo MCU films post the first Avengers movie is the question of why they didn't help each other in their own adventures. We know as the audience this is because it's a character's solo film, but in the context of the world that doesn't make sense that they wouldn't help each other in times of need, particularly when the fate of the world is at stake. Doctor Strange is able to operate outside of this for two reasons. One, the masters of the mystic arts conceal themselves from the world, and their existence is known to a very few, so no one is going to come looking for them, apart from Stephen Strange and a few other lost souls. And secondly, the way magic is used in this world allows massive action to occur without causing any damage. The mirror dimension is a superb writing device in which we can witness mass destruction and change, yet it doesn't have any impact on the outside world. Similarly, in the final act, we actually see the biggest destruction of Earth in any Marvel film, with Dormammu's takeover of the Earth, and yet through the use of the Time Stone, Strange is able to reverse this. So even though the stakes are at a multiversal level, which this was the very first Marvel film to engage with this concept, they are still contained through the plot's use of devices such as the Time Stone and the Mirror Dimension. Some of the set pieces in this film are very unique. One of my favourites is the scene in which Doctor Strange fights Caecilius' henchman in the hospital wing whilst he's being operated on. The use of the defibrillator as a weapon linking Strange's physical form to his astral projection was a really cool idea, and a clever way to tie the scientific with the magical. On that note, this film is an interesting dichotomy between those two seemingly opposing concepts, magic and science. And yet the film links the two together, both in little details like the one I just mentioned, but also through the fact that Stephen Strange goes from a top surgeon, a man of science, to a man of magic. Another angle of this film I love is its humour. Often Marvel humour these days feels a bit...
To be fair, I thought I was dating Megan Thee Stallion.
Sorry, you thought you were dating Megan Thee Stallion?
That's right. There's only one Megan Thee Stallion.
This film doesn't try too hard in its humour, and as a result creates a more charming style of humour that feels built into the story rather than being forced in.
You don't know how to use that, do you?
The effect of this is that the movie is able to hold our suspension of disbelief better, as if the humour felt too forced, would be sucked out of it through the reminder that we're watching a Marvel movie, through the overly quippy or self-aware dialogue. And the suspension of our disbelief is especially important in a movie with such mind-bending concepts such as this one. Doctor Strange has to be up there as one of the best Marvel origin stories, through its self-contained nature to its inspiring messages and the brilliant creativity in its concepts. Doctor Strange is a must-see for fans of the Marvel brand, but it's also a self-contained film that makes it good for not only the Marvel fans, but it also makes it accessible to everyone, and that is something that I feel modern Marvel has lost sight of, but that's a video for another time. So my take on Doctor Strange is that it's one of Marvel's best, And even to this day, like the best of Marvel, it too stands alone as a solid movie that anyone can be inspired by. Thank you very much for your time.
I'm not ready.
No one ever is. We don't get to choose our time. Death is what gives life meaning. To know your days are numbered, your time is short.